Hey guys, yeah, I wanted to come on here because, I don't know if anybody's talked about this yet or if they're going to or they're waiting, but basically a month from next week, because next week, a week from this Friday is the 7th. So a month from next Friday, the 7th, will be April 7th. And what that means is that we will be officially celebrating the 30th anniversary, the 30th anniversary of probably one of the more underrated but more cult classic beloved animated films that Disney has done, and that would be a Goofy movie. And I was, one of the people that got to see this movie multiple times in theaters. I saw it over at the West Ridge Mall, the West Ridge Theater there in Topeka, Kansas. And then I saw it at the Gage 4 Theater in Topeka, Kansas, which is the more budget, kind of dollar theater, if you will, where movies would go before eventually heading to physical media. And I remember watching this and enjoying it. Heck, I remember being excited about it when I found out about it. And what's interesting is the way I found out about it is I still have the article. I clipped the article out. I still have it in a binder somewhere here, packed away. It's one of those storage binders, memory binders that you would have that allow you to not only put like notes in there, like you've written down or whatever you typed up or whatever, but also let you have little storage areas and little slip pockets to put things in. Well, I have one of those somewhere. It's packed away. I don't know if it's here in my room or it's packed away in the garage. But anyway, I clipped out, a couple of things. I clipped out the image, the screenshot they used to promote it, as well as I clipped out, I should say. It's early. I do apologize. I clipped out like I said, the image, the screenshot they used of Goofy and Max as they're going fishing. At least doing the test, at least Goofy taking Max to do a little fly fishing to get him, ready for what he wants to do with him originally. And then, of course, the article where it was called "The Making of a Goofy Movie," and I'm like, "What is this?" And then the commercial started to come on television. I'm like, okay, what, this is unexpected. This is a surprise. And what people have to understand is that this is being released not even 3 years into a Goof Troop's life cycle. Goof Troop, of course, started in 1992 and was, I guess, touted, along with the likes of Darkwing Duck, was touted as a big deal for Disney when it came to their Disney Afternoon-like shows. Because not only did you have both shows on the Disney Afternoon on the weekdays, Monday through Friday, but you also had them on Saturday mornings, and you had episodes exclusive to Saturday mornings outside of the Disney Afternoon ones. Thus, you allowed both shows to be one of the more longer-running episodic shows, in history at that time, as far as the Disney Afternoon would go. Anyway, with that said, I saw the commercial. I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty cool. Because essentially what they were advertising, even though they were calling it a Goofy movie, what they were essentially advertising to me, at that time, and to anybody at that time, was coming to theaters April 7th, Goof Troop, the movie. And I was like, like I said, I was surprised, I was shocked, but I wanted to see it. Because again, it's Goofy, of course, I grew up with the character. But basically, you had Max in there, you had Pete in there, you had PJ, you had some new characters, yes. Of course, you had Bobby, voiced by Pauly Shore. You had Stacy, voiced by Jenna Von Oy. You had, of course, the ever popular, in some people's eyes, most people's eyes, I should say, the ever popular Roxanne, voiced by Kelly Martin. So you had some new characters in there. But you looked at it outside of that as being Goof Troop the movie. So you figured, okay, you're going to see it. You're going to see Goofy in there. You're going to see Max in there. Of course, you're going to see Pete and PJ. And obviously, with Pete and PJ, you got to see Peg and Pistol. But we didn't see Peg and Pistol. That was what's so crazy. we didn't see Pagan Pistol, and I've known, and I know, I'm not saying I've known, like I said, it's early, but I know a lot of people have come out and gave theories, as to why Pagan Pistol wasn't in there. Some would say that, I guess you could say chronologically, continuity-wise, Peg basically finally had enough of Pete's antics and divorced him and took Pistol as part of the custody while he retained PJ. Which to me wouldn't make any sense. Why would you leave someone that's more like you, with someone that's not like you, and whatever, or whatever the case is. But again, these are theories. Some would say that another theory, I should say, some would say that could be the reason as to why we didn't see them, is they were off doing their own mother and daughter thing as well. Maybe they were visiting family. Maybe they were out doing a mother-daughter trip across country. And that left Pete and PJ. Who knows? There's a lot of different, I guess you could say, a lot of dynamic theories is what I'm trying to say. A lot of theoretic dynamics into thinking exactly where the characters were. But what also proves to me that this is, Goof Troop the movie, but under a different title, was the fact that later on in the Disney Adventure magazines, the little Disney Adventure mini magazines, they would have comics based on Disney afternoon shows or Disney properties. Like Rescue Rangers, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Hercules, the animated series that is, Aladdin, the animated series, Gargoyles, you name it. Bonkers, you name it. They would have little mini comics exclusive to Disney Adventures. Well, Goof Troop also had comics, as a part of that. They also have comics as a part of that. And what was interesting is I remember, and I think I have one of the comics with me, it's stored away somewhere. But what I remember, actually it's in my closet, I think. But what I remember is reading one of those comics. And I remember reading it because me and my dad, we went to this, I guess you could say this flea market or swamp meet or whatever it was. Some kind of little warehouse that was selling things. I think it was a swamp meet or something. I'm not really sure. And I remember, and this was in 95. I think it was 95, 96. And I remember they had a stack. They had a stack of books, some of them, categorized. And one of the categories they had was Disney Adventures. And again, I think this might have been a swamp meet or something we went to. So I picked it up and I looked into it and I saw, a comic book, that said Goof Troop, or a comic, I should say, that said Goof Troop. But when I looked at the characters, I'm thinking, this is not, the Goof Troop I know. This is characters from the movie. Because normally you would think, okay, read Goof Troop, you're going to see, Max, you're going to see Goofy, you're going to see Pete, you're going to see Peg and all that, right? Nope. Instead, you see Max, but you see Roxanne, you see Stacy, you see PJ, you see Bobby, and you're thinking, what is this? You're like, what is this? It's under the Goof Troop title, or the Goof Troop name, but it's the characters from a Goofy movie. What is this? And that to me is what pretty much further on confirmed in my mind that what we were watching on the big screen, what had been advertised, under the title of Goofy Movie, was actually Goof Troop the movie. Even Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic at Channel Awesome, when he did his review of, well, actually not his review of it, but he did a Disney December take on it first before he did a review. In his Disney December take on it, he said it's potentially, that basically you're making Goof Troop, because he was talking about the background information, behind the scenes stuff, because he's into that kind of thing. He basically alluded to the fact that you're essentially making Goof Troop the movie. And this comic, and I'm sure a lot of you listening probably know what I'm talking about. This comic pretty much, confirmed that, because again, it was characters from the movie, but under a comic with the name that was under the title, was under the title, like I said, it's early, under the title of Goof Troop. And to me, that was just amazing to see. Because it did further on confirmed that this was basically the same series, just takes place, timeline wise, several years after the show's initial debut. Because you got to remember, in the show, Max basically alludes to when it starts that he's 11, 12 years old. Now you might say, well, how can he be like 15 or 14 or whatever in 1995? Here's the thing. He's 11 when the show begins, but he's like 12 like when we get to the conclusion. So he's about 11, 12, whatever. And when you get to, or at least 11 going on 12, we should say. But anyway, getting to the point. And again, like I said, it's early. Let me get some coffee here, guys. Let me get some coffee. But like I said, he mentions in the pilot he's like 11 years old but we can assume he's 11 going on 12. So he's basically 12 throughout the entire show. 3 years later, he's 15. Okay, 3 years later, he's 15. So we can assume basically that this chronologically and timeline-wise, chronologically takes place 3 years after the show ends. So we can assume that in everything. And again, when you look at the fact that they did place it under the Goofy movie title instead of calling it Goof Troop the movie or Goof Troop movie, they did place it under a Goofy movie. They gave it that title because obviously it would sell more, I guess. I don't know, be more attractive. But again, when you have Disney Adventure Comics or comics licensed by Disney under a licensed mini digest magazine that has comics in it, and one of the comics is a Goof Troop comic, and it has characters from the movie in there, that pretty much to me connects the dots that it's all in the same continuity. It's all in the same timeline, if you will. It just takes place years later. The same goes for its follow-up. An extremely goofy movie in 2000, because that takes place 5 years later. And by taking place 5 years later, it essentially makes Max about 20 years old, 20 years old, 18 years old, or something like that. We say 20, but you might say, well, wait a minute, he's a freshman. How is that possible? Right? Well, again, let's look this up, guys. Yeah, about 2000. So essentially, it makes Max, I guess you could say, about maybe 20 years old or something like that, or 18 if you want to look at it that way, because again, you might say, well, 3 years after 95, it would be 98, right? If he's 15 in 95 in the movie, and he's going to be 16 and everything. Well, that's what you got to also base it off too, because the movie takes place during the summer, and he's transitioning from 15 to 16. So, there you go. So you can basically say that, he is about 15, 16 in the first movie. And then when you look at like 96, 97, he's about 16, 17. Or not 90, but you look at, like they say, 95, 96, about 16 going on 17. And 96, 97, about 17, 18. And all that. So you can probably, if you want to look at it from, a standpoint of when the movie was created, because the animated films, they do take a little longer, even if they're directly made for home video. So they do take a little longer. You could probably assume about 99, late 98. So chronologically about that time frame. So because they're going into college. So we could assume that timeline-wise, if you look at it from the continuity standpoint, it takes place 3 years after Goofy movie and everything, and it's basically them going into college now. That's about it. But anyway, getting back to the point, again, as convoluted as it sounds, it does prove all within the same timeline. So Goof Troop, the first act, Goofy movie, second act, third act, extremely Goofy movie. There you go. All within 3 to 5 years of each other from a continuity timeline perspective. But, yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I really did. When I, getting back to it, I really enjoyed the movie. Again, you could take away Peg and Pistol from the equation in both films, and come up with different theories and conclusions and all that. But we also have to remember that Peg and Pistol will not always in every episode of Goof Troop, so it kind of makes sense. And you want to make the main dynamic of both films focusing on the father and son, that being Max and Goofy, and to an extent PJ and Pete. You want to focus on that dynamic more so than anything. You don't want to have any distractions or anything in the long run. But to me, outside of that, I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the film. I really thought, I really thought the dynamic between Max and Roxanne was cute and very relatable. Because what's interesting is when this movie came out, I was just wrapping up my freshman year in high school, and I kind of, I kind of in a way related to Max in that sense that, I was the awkward guy, and everything kind of new, a little different. I I would do some things that, kind of were embarrassing. That got me some nicknames that were, justifiably given, but, understandable, as to, why they were given to me and everything because of certain things that I would do. But in the end, over time, like Max, in his own way in the movie, for me, over time, I would basically win over everybody with just being myself, just being who I am, and, not, totally changing, my personality, to be anybody different. And I like that. I like that message in, that this movie gives, because what Max tries to do in the movie, little spoilers, is he wants to impress Roxanne, because he's had a thing for her since, since the beginning of high school. Excuse me there. Like I said, it's early. He's had a thing for her since the beginning of high school, and he wants to impress her. He wants to impress her so bad that he doesn't realize that all you have to do is just be yourself. Just be honest with, with her. Just be yourself, and she'll be very understanding of it, And I know some people are like, oh, well, she's not like that. I mean, I saw Double Toasted's review on it. I saw Double Toasted's review on it, and Corey's take, and I think Martin's take on it, and they have a right to their opinion and everything, and that's fine. But I don't. But here's the thing: it came out when they were already like in their 20s and everything, 20s and 30s, I think. So they don't have an understanding. They don't have a, they don't have a total understanding of, okay, I see where, Max is coming from, or where the message is coming from for Max, and for for Max to learn, as well as for everybody else to learn as well that's viewing it, that's around that age range, if not younger. And that is, and that is when you're in school, be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to act, out of character, if you know what I mean. But overall, outside the message, I thought the movie was great. I really did. I enjoyed the songs and everything. I mean, Eye to Eye, Stand Out. I mean, come on. Everybody wanted to listen to those songs. In fact, I remember I was living in Oskaloosa, Kansas, and I was living in Oskaloosa, Kansas. I had a radio, that a tape recorder radio, of course, and I wanted to record Eye to Eye anytime it came out, right? Or I wanted to record Stand Out anytime it came out. And one of the things I would listen to on Sunday mornings, one of the things I would listen to on Sunday mornings is I would tune. Well, actually, what I would do is I would get up on Sundays, or I think it was Sundays. Yeah, it was Sunday mornings, and I would tune in. I would put up the antenna, the middle antenna on the radio, and I would tune in, to a certain FM station. I don't know which one it was, out of Kansas City, and it was one of the stations that was chosen by Disney to universally broadcast, simultaneously, or simulcast at that time, the Radio Disney show. They were one of the people that was told to simulcast, or at least broadcast at that time, the local time, the Radio Disney programming. So that way kids, folks can listen to Radio Disney. And I remember doing that, and then I'm like, okay, obviously they're gonna play some songs, that are from today's, music, as well as some Disney stuff. And people would write in, they would write in, and they would ask for, certain requests. They would call in or write in, ask for certain requests. And there was a couple of times people would call in and ask for Eye to Eye or Standout. And I remember specifically one time I got a blank cassette. I think it was a blank cassette. I put it in there, and all of a sudden, basically, if I can remember correctly, I was listening to it, and all of a sudden they said, "All right, so and so is requesting Eye to Eye," and next thing you know, Eye to Eye comes out, and I recorded it. I don't know what happened to that original audio cassette, but I do remember doing that. And years later, I do remember buying the soundtrack. I do remember. Well, not I didn't buy it. My dad's mom, my late grandma in Oskaloosa, she bought it for me. I think, or at least she helped me buy it, or something to that extent. But I did get my hands on the soundtrack. I do remember doing that. I think she did help me. I can't. Again, I think she helped me or something. I don't know. I got my hands on it. I'll just put it that way. Years later, I did get my hands on the CD soundtrack, on the soundtrack for on the soundtrack on CD. I'll put it that way. But I do remember there might have been some help there with her, from her or something. Again, God only knows. God knows. So. But I did get my hands on it, and I think she may have helped me. I think she did. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. She either gave me the money, or she got it for me, or something. Something happened. But anyway, getting back, and again, Lord God knows. God above knows the truth. He knows the truth. But again, I did get my hands on the soundtrack, and I've enjoyed it. I have the soundtrack on my Spotify, or at least certain songs on my Spotify. So, I have the soundtrack. There's no doubt. And speaking of the soundtrack, I was looking up information to make sure I got the release date right before recording this. And basically, they announced that 2 days after the 30th anniversary in April, on April 9th, 2025, for the first time, because it's taking pre-orders right now, they're going to be releasing the Goofy movie soundtrack on vinyl. Yeah. For those of you that are into collecting vinyl for nostalgic reasons, for original recordings and soundtracks back in the day, and even now, well, guess what? You can add to that collection come April 9th with a Goofy movie on vinyl. So that's going to be pretty cool. It's essentially they're taking the soundtrack and putting it on two sides of the record. So that's good. That's really good to see. But yeah, like I said, I did get the soundtrack, I think a few years later. And again, I can't remember how, whether it was on my own or my grandma or something like that. Again, God knows. God knows. God watching from heaven above, He knows more than anybody. In fact, he knows us better than we know ourselves and what we're going to do before we do it. God's got a plan for us. And we don't know what that plan is. Only He does. Whatever job He has lined up for me in the future, that's His plan for me. But yeah, again, only He knows exactly how I obtained it and everything. But yeah, I ended up, like I said, getting it and everything. And even before that, basically several months later, my dad and I got the movie on VHS when it came out and everything. Because I think at that time I was doing what was known as a work-study program at school. Basically, the work-study program was where I would, it basically is where I would earn credit, automatic credit, but also would, while I was also working, I would do like janitorial stuff, or I'd work in the cafeteria, and stuff. And basically, it would be basically the work-study credit was, again, I would earn credit for school towards graduation, in the next several years, within the next several years at that time, because I started doing that around the 95-96 school year. So I would earn a little something about employment, but also gain credit for, I would gain credit, towards, graduating and everything, towards my EPA. And basically, I would also be paid. I'd get paid, believe it or not. So that's what the work-study program was. And basically, I was doing this, and I had earned my first check, and my dad allowed me to go and get the Goofy movie, at Target, because I think that's where we first saw it, to get it at Target. And that's what I did. And I still have that VHS packed away. I still have that VHS packed away in the garage as we speak. But yeah, I ended up buying it, and then of course several years later, I did get the movie on DVD. I think I got the movie on. Yeah, I did get the movie on DVD several years later when I moved out on my own, and they started to transition a lot of the movies. Disney and other studios started to transition the movies over to digital video disc, which is DVD. I did eventually get a Goofy movie on DVD, and then thanks to Frank Hill, give a shout out to him, several years ago, I think in time for the 20th anniversary, they had released the movie on Blu-ray, and Frank Hill several years ago sent me the movie on Blu-ray. So shout out to Frank for that. And then, of course, we have Disney Plus, where you can watch the movie at any time you want. I think it might be in 4K as well. I gotta go check. But yeah, and like I said, getting back to the movie, I really enjoyed it and everything, and I like that little dynamic between little lesson message, that dynamic between Roxanne and Max. Despite how you might feel about Roxanne, thinking, oh, she's material and all that. Look, here's the thing about Roxanne and Max. Okay, some could say, some could say that they obviously broke up when Max when they went to separate colleges, and of course we see in the little Max and Goofy short that they did for Mickey's Trace Upon a Christmas, that Max has a new girlfriend named Mona. So you're thinking, okay, obviously him and Roxanne are no longer an item, right? Here's the thing, though. When you look at House of Mouse, which lines more into what you see with Goofy Movie and Goof Troop, Goofy Movie and Extremely Goofy Movie, I should say, as well as Goof Troop, when you look how it lines up and everything, there's an episode called Max's Big Date. And who's his date? It's Roxanne. She's back. And I think, honestly, if they'd been able to continue the show, they would have had plans for her to be a regular. I don't know why, I just get this feeling. But yeah, Roxanne is back. She makes a return. And again, if you want any other clarification, despite it being like, I guess you could say a dream or a wish that Donald made in the new DuckTales reboot, depending on how you view it, obviously it was not real, but it was more of a sitcom kind of life. But because you had Goofy, guest star and everything, and obviously that was legit, that was a real deal and all that. But when you look at it, Max and Roxanne are a couple there too. So obviously the Mona Max thing was like one of those temporary situations to where you'll fall in love with somebody in college, but it won't be a permanent thing because maybe they're going to transfer or something and all that. But anyway, obviously you can also look at that as non-canon, like they just needed a short or something like that, and they didn't know, okay, how are we going to explain Roxanne being there and everything, how we're going to do that. They probably just figured, because here's the thing too, when you do those CGIs as well as 2Ds, depending on when they need to be released, you have a time limit and everything. You have like a due date, a deadline. So obviously they probably had a deadline to follow, and they said, okay, we got to do this. We got to do this story. Let's just put this new character in there and go with this. Just say she's a new character, and people can just choose to if they want to choose to make it canon, they can make it canon. If they don't want to, that's fine. And obviously when you see that the fact that Roxanne is seen more recently in Disney material and all that. It shows that basically, I think that Goofy Max Christmas thing they did for Twice Upon a Christmas was just a rush job. Like they needed to get something out there, and they're like, let's just do it, get it out of the way and be done. And that's what they did. And some people even think that initially the Mona character was supposed to be Roxanne, but they didn't. But they couldn't. I guess they couldn't get Kelly Martin back to reprise her role. No, wait a minute. Was it Kelly Martin that did? No, I think Kelly Martin did do the voice of Mona or something. But again, I guess I don't know. Something happened. Something happened behind the scenes to where it's like, it was supposed. I think speculation is it was supposed to be Roxanne, but it turned out to be somebody different, or they just, didn't have time to get the design. I guess you could say corrected for CGI. Like maybe there was something with her design that just didn't work well with CGI. Maybe the hair or something. I don't know. So they basically said, okay, we'll just create this character, be done with it. We got to get it out there in time, and that's what we got. But again, a lot of this does. But again, when you look at House of Mouse, they came out a little after, not after, but came out before. It came out before Twice Upon a Christmas and everything. But you look at that, you look at the DuckTales reboot, and it's pretty much confirmed that, in people's eyes, that Mona character was supposed to be Roxanne. Well, that was supposed to be her, but something happened, something behind the scenes that they couldn't make it a reality. But outside of all that and everything, again, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I really did, and it's a shame that they didn't continue the series, because sometimes, when they do a movie like this, they will continue the series with new animated episodes. They'll advertise new animated episodes coming. They will be based in the timeline of the Goofy movie that take place after. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. So it's unfortunate we didn't get that chance, but we did get some kind of a continuation in the Disney Adventure magazines, and that's all that really matters. That's all that really matters. And Roxanne is still a very popular character as well, because I think she has a Funko Pop now, I think. I'm not really sure. But she is still very beloved. And again, fans were just happy. I mean, I'll tell you this. When I saw House of Mouse and I saw Big Date, and I heard Max is getting himself all prepped up and everything, and he says, hey, Roxy, that. Or basically, you have Lumiere coming out, because House of Mouse was basically like the cavalcade of all stars and everything, kind of like what the Chibi verse is right now. And basically, you have Lumiere coming out, and because Max is like the chauffeur, he's like he's a park attendant. He's the park attendant and everything, right? He's the park attendant. And long story short, you see Lumiere coming out and everything out of his vehicle, and he comments on Max basically looking sharp and everything, like he's ready for something. And Max is like, my big date, Roxanne. And the moment I heard that, I said, wait a minute, did he say who I think he said? And, it's like, Roxanne? We're getting Roxanne? It's like, okay, cool. And again, it tells you that Disney wanted to do more with the character. They wanted to do more with the character, but unfortunately, I guess things just fell through with either the voice actresses of Kelly Martin or Greg Delis, if you will. So, they couldn't do any more than they wanted to outside of like the comic appearances and cameos, in pictures and all that. Again, I liked Roxanne as a character. Wish they could have done more with her and everything. And overall, like I said, I like the movie. I like the movie of, the parent basically, because this is true to real life too, but, the parent basically telling their kid, even nowadays, no matter how big you get, you're always going to be my son. No matter how big you get, you're always going to be my daughter. No matter, whether or not you change your name through marriage, your last name through marriage, you're always going to be my kid. And that's why, they treat you the way they do. Because they're always going to view you not as this adult person, but they're always going to view you as, what they raised, as what was growing up with them, and everything. So, so it's a good message good message that, no matter how much you want to have your independence, no matter how much you want to have your say and want to, let, the adult know that, hey, we know what's best for you. To them, you are still their kid. To them, you are still someone that needs to answer to them or respect what they say and leave it at that. I like that message. I do. I do like that message that you're always going to be, father and son, father and daughter, mother and daughter, no matter, what changes you go through in life. So I do like that message and everything. I do like the songs. I thought the songs were good. Open Road I thought was a good song, very funny visual song on screen. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, Eye to Eye and Standout I thought were good. Tevin Campbell really knocked it out of the park with those. You had a nice little kind of like makeup, redemption, reconcile song with nobody else but you. I like that one and everything. So, and After Today, I like that song too because I felt like, because everybody makes a comparison to Disney kind of like being Broadway shows at times with the musical numbers, especially the first one. And After Today felt like that. After Today felt like a big opening Broadway musical number. So I like that as well. So again, the songs I thought were good, and the score was good as well. And the montage of Max and Goofy finally just kind of getting along, go after Goofy entrusts him with the map. Even after, unbeknownst to Goofy till later on, Max changed it to go from Lake Destiny, Idaho to Los Angeles. I like that little montage of them, going to all these different places, where Goofy's like, you know what, if I'm going to bond with my son here, if I'm going to, kind of understand him, I got to entrust him. I got to let him help out with, with this trip. So I like how he's basically like, I'm going to entrust you with the map to the point, and I'm going to let you make the decision of where we stop at and everything while we're on the way to Lake Destiny. Or at least he thinks it's Lake Destiny at that time, because again, he doesn't know. I like that, because, he doesn't know that Max did that and everything. So I like, but again, getting back to the montage that takes place after that scene, I do like that little montage of them just going to all these different places that Max wants to go to. Max is, would be into. But I like how Max also notices, I think it's during the Monster Jam one, or the Monster Jam, a stop they're at. I like how Max is like, he sees his father puts his hands to his ears, and he's like, okay, this is not Dad's cup of tea, but I know what would be. So he takes him to this big place called the Big House of Yarn, and everything. He surprises him with that, and it's like, Goofy's like, whoa, boy, and everything. Cause that's what Goofy's into. Goofy, that's what he's into and everything. I like that little montage moment there too. Outside, really enjoyed the movie, and I like the idea that in the end, Max realizes with Roxanne, just be yourself, don't lie, just tell the truth, explain the situation, and you might be surprised about the response you might get. You might be surprised about the response you might get if you just be honest with her. Just say, look, this is what's going on. I want to take you and everything. I do, but I don't know. I don't know why my dad suddenly just sprung this on me and all that. Just out of nowhere. Just be honest. Just explain that you don't know why he sprung it on you out of nowhere. It's like, this wasn't planned and everything. So, just be honest. So I like that message. I do like the message of also, look, your parents might be more different to you. They might be set in your ways, but you got to take the time to spend. But you got to take the opportunity to spend time with them. And get to learn why they're set in their ways, and also kind of appreciate maybe why they enjoy certain things over things you or let's say your siblings might be into more so than anything. But yeah, I like those kind of messages that they put in the film. It was really, really good and everything. The only thing that was critical that a lot of fans did not like was the Principal Mazur character. And I was even talking about this with my dad a long time ago. And he basically said that when the way Mazur talked to Goofy about Max, Mazur, especially what he says at the end, would be out of a job. He would be out of a job. He would be banned from ever being in education ever again. And he's right. You don't ever tell a parent that if, you don't do something about, you don't do something about your kid or something like that, they're going to end up in the electric chair. You don't become very angrily verbal with them and everything. You don't do that. You don't do that whatsoever. You're respectful. You become respectable. You explain the situation. That you don't verbally attack the parent because of the way their child is. You don't do that. So to me, I've always had this theory about Mazur as well, that there's something more to this guy than meets the eye. Like why does he feel like he comes off as that antagonist villain that tries to be a smooth operator, but in reality is a quadruple certified AAA plus dickwad. What's up with this guy? What's his issue? Especially when it comes to Max and now Goofy. And I've always had this theory that if it is connected, if you do connect this being in the Goof Troop universe, I've always had this theory that Mazur might have known Goofy, and might have known Pete, might have known Peg back in high school, as well as maybe even Goofy's wife in high school. Because I'm thinking Goofy and his wife, Peg and Pete, were all friends, right? I think they were kind of like a group, like a little clique together. And Mazur had a thing for Peg. He had a thing for Goofy's wife. And felt like, hey, I'm the big shot in high school. I can have any girl I want. And then he sees Peg hanging out with Goofy and Pete. Sees Goofy's wife hanging out with them, and it's like, ooh, those two I'm gonna get. Those two girls are gonna be mine. And basically, the reason he might have issues with Goofy, and maybe to an extension Pete, as well, is because the women they had didn't want him. They wanted Pete and Goofy. So that's just a theory I'm thinking. Like, he's had an issue with Goofy and Pete, but mostly Goofy because, of situations like that dating back to high school. But anyway, though, to get back on topic, that's one scene that is very critical, and I wish they would have had some kind of resolution of it, like maybe do an epilogue to like the beginning of the school year, and everything. You see a new principal and everything be introduced, and it's somebody else, somebody that everybody likes. But then everybody's wondering, okay, like what happened to Mazur? And then we see Mazur, and we see the new principal point out to the window, and they all look out the window, and they see Mazur just packing up his stuff and everything. And you hear maybe the new principal saying, yeah, he's been banned from ever being in education again because he doesn't understand you have to be respectable to all, to all students as well as to the parents of said students. I wish we would have gotten something like that to have a conclusion, but we never did. But outside of that, again, I enjoyed the movie, and it's hard to believe it's been 30 years since it came out. And we'll see what they do outside of, releasing the soundtrack on vinyl on April 9th. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on a Goofy movie. What did you think about it when you first saw it? How did you first discover it was coming out? Because again, I first found out about it through, through the Disney Channel magazine and everything, where I basically cut out and clipped some of the article and the image that went with the article. Let me know how you first found out about it. Where do you think it lines up? Do you think I'm correct in where it lines up in the Goof Troop continuity timeline? Give me your thoughts on that and everything. And overall, what did you think about it as a film? Did you enjoy it and all that? Do you think they could have done more with Roxanne as a character and everything? And do you think maybe just having a cameo by Peg and Pistol in the film would have helped out to kind of establish that this is Goof Troop the movie, as well as and not just Goofy the movie. Because one thing I think, to get to the title to it quickly, I think the reason they didn't call it Goof Troop the movie or Goof Troop movie is because of what happened with DuckTales a few years prior. So I think that's why they didn't do it. But again, outside of that, guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere. You can find me at iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Audible from Amazon, Radio Public, Overcast, anywhere there's a podcast, anywhere there's a podcast being broadcast or being advertised or listed, you'll probably find mine there as well. Also, find me at Venmo, in Venmo and Cash App to help support there, as well as find me at patreon.com at BWRoses. Also, you can find me at Vimo at BWRoses, Odyssey.com at BWRoses.5. You can also find me at Rumble.com at BWRoses. You can find me at DeviantArt.com at BVW1979. You can also find me at InkBunny.net at BWRoses. Also, check out the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. Also, follow me on Twitter, aka X, at BWRoses. Follow me on Blue Sky at BWRoses. And on TikTok at BWRoses. But guys, give me your thoughts overall on the movie. What did you think about it when it first came out? And until then, I'm out.